Hello everyone, and welcome back to the world of Dragon Age. As you've heard about 3 times before, Dragon Age offers a massive world with tons of hidden lore to discover. Well, today I'll be covering one of the most important cities in all of Thedas, the city of the Stone, the Stout, and the Nug, Orzammar. Starting off as always, let's get into some history of Orzammar. As we know in the game, Orzammar is the capital of the Dwarven Empire, and is the largest surviving city. However, we learned right from the start of a dwarf origin story that there is another dwarven city remaining from the destruction of the Blights. That city is Kal-Sharok. See, Kal-Sharok, despite surviving the Blight, was abandoned by Orzammar in the interest of saving the dwarven capital. Communication and roads connecting the two were shut and abandoned for centuries. Until the current age, which is the Dragon Age, where Kal-Sharok was discovered by the dwarves to have survived all this time, almost in complete isolation, though many believe that they still traded with many surfacers, just not Orzammar itself. In fact, Endrin Idukin, the king who just recently passed away in Dragon Age Origins, is the king that is credited with its rediscovery. Obviously, Kal-Sharok is not the happiest about being abandoned by Orzammar, and tensions are fierce, with little to no interaction between the two cities. Kal-Sharok refuses to accept Orzammar's paragons, kings, and any sort of decrees. Additionally, Kal-Sharok was originally the capital of the Dwarven Empire, before Orzammar. This was long before the Blights, and while it can be easily assumed the reason Kal-Sharok was not the capital is because of the Blights' impact, the reason was actually far more practical. See, I've talked your heads off about how close to the Tevinter Imperium and the Dwarves were. Well, Kal-Sharok is the closest city to the Tevinter Imperium, and was likely a center of trade for the Imperium, which makes it the ideal choice for a capital when the Imperium ruled over Thedas. However, when the Imperium fell and had to retreat back into the north, Orlais and eventually Ferelden rose to prominence, making Orzammar the center of trade due to its proximity being right in between Orlais and Ferelden. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. Orzammar has tons of history, as you can tell. For our number 2 slot, we often see dwarves using unique phrases that we don't see anywhere else, such as Duster, Sawdet, or Saraka. While the dwarves initially had their own language entirely, however, due to the need of trade with the surface, their language eventually adapted to the common tongue. However, they still retained certain phrases that they were often now mostly a lost language. Many of the noble houses' names, such as Idukin, however, likely had meanings in the dwarven language when they were founded. For our number 3 slot, something to consider with the whole situation of Orzammar right now is the issue of decline. Obviously, with the caste system and constant threat of the Darkspawn, people in Orzammar are dropping at a disturbingly high rate. However, it seems the decline is bound to start a crisis sooner or later, as due to the corruption of the blood, many dwarves are left infertile, leading to an even smaller population. For our number 4 slot, let's talk about the Shaperate. It's appropriate since we've been talking about history, which we can visit in the Diamond Court of Orzammar. This area offers one of the largest libraries in the game, with numerous codex entries to read. You can even talk to the Shaper of Memories, who offers us probably the most detail of Dwarven history and culture out of anyone in the game. However, apparently, the Shaper of Memories is only one of 3 Shapers in total, the other 2 being the Shaper of the Stone, who keeps track of more common things like jobs, marriages, etc., and the Shaper of Golems, which is mostly just for show now, as there are only a few golems left in Orzammar. However, centuries ago, this may have been a large military position. Additionally, there's some really funny lines in this area that I had to cover here.
Yes. We have only a few dozen left in Orzammar, and I do not recognize this one. Where did you find it? Every golem is precious to us. We'd pay a good sum for a new find.
I'd sooner jump into a pit of lava.
Unfortunate.
I did. He was bald, with the most garish brand across his head. Almost like he took pride in being casteless. Imagine. No offense, Warden.
For our number 5 slot, one of the best items in the game is the Key to the City, which you can receive right here in Orzammar. This is actually a railable ring that gives us +2 to all attributes, as well as give us spell resistance and better healing effects. The key is awarded by the Assembly to the bearers that have a deep understanding of dwarf social structure, which is appropriate given that we find this key based on finding 5 writs containing codex entries about Orzammar culture. One entry I found particularly interesting as it pertains to a section of the game that I didn't even think much about. This entry reads, The statue of the Paragons must be the Hall of Heroes. There is no other replacement that so benefits Dwarven interest. It is the first glimpse that surface ambassadors have of Orzammar, an introduction not just to our living ancestors, but also to the stone from which we were born. They must see it shaped before they can understand the complexity of its raw form. The hall must also serve a second purpose, as a last sight for departing brethren. Those who choose to leave must do so with the heavy gaze of their ancestors at their backs. It is a reminder of duty and of consequence. We will promote all manner of trade, but also reinforce that those who leave for too long will return to strangers at the stone. I found this very interesting because this is the first time we ever enter Orzammar. We have to go through the Hall of Heroes, which is a rather winding hallway with not too much to do other than see the statues before entering the city. In subsequent arrivals, we have the option to actually skip this area, but not our first entry. We, just like all outsiders, have to observe the ancestors of this city. Additionally, when we leave, and with Oghren no less, we have to exit the Hall of Heroes. This is because Oghren himself is becoming an outsider. Now yes, you can leave without having Oghren, but the point of this is still really cool in my opinion. I thought it was a really nice lore touch, now that I realized that it's there. For our number 6 slot, let's look at the Proving Grounds, a coliseum that is both unique and central to Dwarven culture. Provings are used as a means to settle disputes of honor, vengeance, debates in the Orzammar Assembly, and conflicts between the noble houses, and even the common folk sometimes. Which makes it fitting that a proving is happening right now, during a time of electing a new king in Orzammar. We can fight in the provings ourselves in the name of either Harrimont or Balem. Of course, if we side with Harrimont, we learn that Balem is actually rigging the provings, so Harrimont's 2 best fighters stay out of the fight to ensure his victory. This, however, is not exclusive to Balem, as many dwarves try to rig provings for political gain. House Tethrith's, Varric's family, were nobles before they were casted out, for continuously rigging provings. Even Endrin Idukin, the current king, or was until Origins, was rumored to have killed his brother in a rig proving. Additionally, the quest Proving After Dark, where you fight non-traditional Dwarven fighters, which is also completely illegal, but I thought I'd include it here as it's a fun quest with a cool reward at the end, but it's tucked away with no real map indicator. For our number 7 slot, let's take a look into the Orzammar Dust Town, where the poor, castless, and the dangerous underground carter reside. You see, Dust Town is the oldest area of the city, and is completely unmaintained due to the utter disdain which dwarves view the castless. Guards do not patrol the area except for when the assembly orders an attack on the Carta by knocking down doors and even burning sections of Dust Town, which is likely why the city of the state is so worn down when we see it in Origins. However, despite all this, a codex entry from Dragon Age 2 called Darktown's Deal highlights that even though the Carta is a huge threat to the people of Orzammar and everyone says they want them defeated, in actuality the Assembly knows that getting rid of them would be in no way beneficial to Orzammar, as the Carta controls important factors of surface trade, which most prominently lyrium, which we see interacting with Rogek in Origins through the quest I've mentioned a few times. These surface trades by the Carta are what keeps Orzammar running pretty much, and of course is what gives the Dwarven nobles fine surface luxuries. Number 8 slot, let's delve out of the lore of the game and into the game's history. A Tale of Orzammar is a sort of official mod created by PC Gamer magazine back in 2009, when Dragon Age was first released. The idea was a cool collaboration of PC Gamer and some of the writing team of Dragon Age, where they wanted to show the creation and modding toolset available in Origins. The quest itself is a bit bare-boned, with no actual voices being used. The story and features, however, were a bit more interesting. You can play a character separate from the hero of Ferelden, as either a dwarf, elf, or human, hired by an unnamed noble house in Orzammar. You meet at Tapster's Tavern, and along with the noble and fellow Dwarven warrior, you head out to reclaim an artifact in the Idukan Taig. You can fight through some darkspawn, and when you arrive in the tomb, you find it empty. This was a setup actually by Balin to plant the Shield of Idukan, and basically is a nice setup into the Dwarven noble origin story. Even though this is a mod, it's actually one of the few cases of being an official mod, and is likely canon for all intents and purposes. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to play the mission itself, as it's not available officially, but you can still get access to it. For a number 9 slot, let's delve into some lore on the little subterranean bunny pigs, the Nugs. Nugs are basically the rats of the underground, and originally were not sought after delicacies that we see in Origins. See, a lost legionary soldier hundreds of years ago was trapped in the deep roads for weeks, where out of pure desperation found and started to eat nugs, which to us would be the equivalent of eating a rat out of hunger. However, he found out nugs actually taste great, and when he was discovered in the deep roads, he had actually gained weight. He was named a paragon by the Assembly for his discovery of nugs tasting good, which is the highest honor you can receive for a dwarf. And that's why we have a quest in Origins to find as many nugs around Orzammar as we can. Additionally, you can give Leliana a pet nug named Schmooples. To trigger this, however, you have to do a personal quest, then talk to an Orzammar and have her mention about nugs. Then go into Dustdown and pay the idle dwarf to go fetch a cute nug. Then once you give the cute nug to Leliana, you have a pet nug join your camp for the rest of the game. Never forget, nug is love, nug is life. Finally, for our last slot, I have another best sword in the game for you patient viewers and metagamers. In the Orzammar throne room, by clicking out on the throne, you can get a codex labeled Caged in Stone. There, you need to place your party members like so. One at the door before the throne room, two at the left side, each making a stone turning noise when you're on the right place. Then, your final party member should activate the throne again, and then a freaking dragon will appear. Apparently the dwarves held a secret dragon in their throne room for reasons. Anyway, defeating him will drop the great sword Ageless, which is the best non-DLC two-hander you can get in my opinion. It is always tier 6 with the following stats. It weakens nearby darkspawn, increases hostility and intimidation attempts, has a stamina regeneration in combat, and an additional 4+ damage versus darkspawn. The amount of damage it does to darkspawn is, in my opinion, why it's the best sword in the game. Not much is known about the lore of the sword itself, but the bigger question is, why is there a dragon in the Orzammar Palace? Well, we do know by seeing the Archdemon later on in the Orzammar questline that there are openings in the earth where large creatures like dragons could fly in. Dragons are also hundreds of years old, and we don't know the anatomy, but it's not totally implausible that one could be trapped in a palace long ago and most people just died and forgot about it. It's still a bit of a head scratcher though, so let me know your own theories about why there's a dragon here. But also be sure to do this before crowning a king in Orzammar, as the dragon is only able to be released when there is no king on the throne. If you don't king it before then, you won't get the access to Ageless. Thank you all so very much for watching, but I'm not done with the dwarves yet. I plan on making smaller videos for each of the key locations in the main story of the dwarves, so tune in soon to see some more lore, and I'll catch you all next time.